And we're live. Should I just take it away? Or
Yeah. This is your thing.
Welcome to another edition of the Lonely Marks podcast. As you can see, all four of the Lonely Marks are in full force here. JPO, Jacob Barber, how you doing?
Great.
Austin Pez Howell, how you doing?
I'm all right. This is the first time doing a wrestling debate. That should be interesting. How the Battleground top contender does in debating wrestling. We'll see.
Ooh. And Richie Goodacre, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just came off a trivia victory, Big Brian. I thought I'd let people know, and let people know. I don't think enough people know. So no. This will be fun. Wrestling debate. I've done a couple of these in the past, one went all right. I mentioned that, and the one went okay. And
wait, who beat you in the other one?
Who beat you in the first one?
Wait, what?
I remember I beat you in one of them, but that was like.
No, but who won the overall match is what I'm trying to say.
I thought it was. I mean, we don't. I got selective.
You brought it up. I wasn't going to bring it up. You brought it up. But yes, as you can see, Pez and Richie just alluded to, we are going to have a debate here tonight after the last couple of pay-per-views. Each one of us won a prediction in one way or another, so we got to pick our topics. We're going to talk a good WCW pay-per-view, MLW soon, fantasy draft or fantasy Forbidden Door with Jacob. But I decided to do the debates here, something I kind of want to do because I haven't done it for a while here. I'm taking a back seat tonight, though, as I will be the third judge. If there is a tiebreaker, for instance, if one judge says they like Jacob, the other judge says they like Pez, even if I thought Richie won, I'll tell you, but I'll choose between Barber and Pez, or if they were organically my first. Anyway, I'll just be the tiebreaker because we do have two judges here. Bring up a guy that knows a lot about wrestling, maybe too much about wrestling, the current WWT champion. He's won all sorts of titles. Chris Cass is backstage as one of the judges tonight. Chris, how you doing, Chris?
I think you meant to bring up the other guy for that introduction.
No, you're the one that knows a lot about wrestling. You're the one that knows wrestling.
Really? Sure. I mean, do you want me to name all the European champions again?
No, but you did do it successfully off air, as I knew you would.
I'm confused. Is Sam Roberts with us tonight? Or
never compare to that piece of shit. Hi, I'm here.
And up next, a man who knows a little bit about wrestling. He can name the three faces of Foley and maybe the third man of NWO. It's Tato, everybody.
Dennis Rodman's an NWO. What is a leg lock?
You lock the leg. So we got.
Tato doesn't know a wristwatch from a wrist lock. Am I right?
Hey.
That's a quote from Ready to Rumble. I'm good at movies.
Right?
Always a movie question at least once on WWT. So we got three different questions here. Each competitor picked their own kind of strengths/question that they wanted. What we'll do is we'll have 1 minute openers. We're basically just kind of briefly go over what your pick is, so we don't really have to delve into anyone else's pick. Then the 2 minute expansion, that's when you really kind of start to defend your pick and maybe debunk others. And then the 5 minute free for all three of you will just go at it. Obviously, try not to go too over talking one another. Let everyone get their shit in if this was a real wrestling match. And then finally, your 1 minute closer, where once again you'll try to solidify what your pick is. Maybe try to debunk others as well. We'll go over the orders in that. Obviously. Keep it friendly. We're all friends. I want to enter this match as friends and co-hosts. I want to exit this match as friends and co-hosts. So, don't feel bad if you don't win. Don't be too cocky if you do win. Have fun. Debaters, Tato, you've done debates a lot. Chris, you might be kind of new in it here. Even if you disagree with their answers or you totally agree, that's not what matters. What matters is the debate. What matters is who sells it the best, who debunks the best. So keep that in mind. Even if you love their answer or hate their answer, if they defended the best or unsuccessfully defended the best, that's what you got to go with. Go by the debate. Any other questions? Oh, I'm going to personally cam off so I'm not distracting. When I cam on, that means you got 30 seconds, and then I'll visibly give you fucking 10 9. You know what I mean? And wrap it up too. Tato and Chris, do what you want. If you want to cam off so they're not distracted, that's maybe a suggestion. If not, it's fine. Once you
Yeah,
see,
probably best to put us back for size reasons.
or you
and
can take him
whatnot.
back. If Jacob wants to take him back, if not, you can just cam off so Jacob's not too distracted himself. Whatever, it's fine by me. Any quick questions though? Because obviously, if you're watching this is the first time we've ever done this, so if there's kinks, it's bound to happen. Any
I
questions?
don't have any more questions because you just
Judges,
don't want to look at me anymore. It's okay.
Contestants. Oh, thank God. Any questions, contestants?
No.
Oh,
How are you?
so
Good.
I do have one question. This is probably
That's
something
fine.
we should have discussed before
maybe.
we went live. We have 3 questions.
Yeah.
There are 3 of us.
What if you got?
What if we
So
each
if
get a
everyone gets
question?
one.
Do you have a tiebreaker?
I have a blind round.
All right, Tato's got a blind round, so
Perfect.
he's
Perfect.
ready, evidently. The first question here is, which one WCW superstar would have completely changed the invasion that wasn't a part of it? So up first, I believe, is Austin, and then we'll go to Richie, then Jacob. If you want, maybe do that now, Jacob, Austin, Richie, Jacob for this. Cool. Alrighty. Austin, you've got 1 minute, just starting whenever you decide to speak.
So the invasion had a lot of issues, as most of us who did watch it know. It did not turn out the way anyone wanted it to. But one of the main problems is they started off on the wrong foot, namely by bringing in the 2 biggest stars, or what they thought were the 2 biggest stars at the time, were good guys that they turned bad guys, which is not a good way to start, because the people who did know who they were wanted to cheer them and were not able to do so, namely Diamond Dallas Page and Booker T, brought them in, turn him heel, bad guy for Tato. But yeah, that's what they did. And essentially, you needed to start off with a great heel, a recognizable person who knew how to kick things off right, who had the charisma, who has the name value, and who was a top heel, who could sort of rush in this invasion and make it worthwhile. And that's why I chose Hollywood Hogan, Hulk Hogan, essentially, but in his Hollywood sort of NWO persona. And it would have been a really great kickoff, somebody that you actually could boo for, that would be recognizable as that great kind of kickoff heel.
Alrighty, Richie, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so yeah, I think one of the big things that was like hurting the invasion era. Well, like there's a lot of things, but like one of the big things is like while they did have big stars in the invasion, a lot of their bigger ones didn't come in, whether it's contract issues or whatever. So they didn't come in till later, which they could have had influence over the invasion. And one of the biggest stars that could have made an impact is Bill Goldberg. I think Bill Goldberg would have made an impact. Like, obviously by default he probably would have been a heel, but I envision him more like kind of like your more anti kind of hero, sort of more like an RVD, and then you'd probably I think that they'd be more. I think that the Vince would be more convinced to give like the invasion more wins, and then it'd be more formidable as a overall group, the alliance, and you'd get that dream match between Goldberg and Steve Austin. That would
Time. All right, Jacob, whenever you speak.
So this is a very interesting question, because I was very, very young when the invasion was happening. So I'm looking back on it as an adult now, and who's the one person that came to my mind that I was shocked didn't come over from WCW. For me, that's Sting. And I think Sting absolutely would have changed the game for WCW. Obviously, it doesn't change the outcome, but I think it does change how people can remember it, because I think when you think of WCW, you think Sting. Like he is WCW through and through. And not only that, like, taking the invasion out of it, I'm sure we're talking about the invasion, but just think of all the matches and the dream matches that could come with this. Sting coming to WWE earlier than 2014, which is about 14 years too late. But I'll get into it later. But Sting, I think, is the correct choice here.
All righty, that was a 1 minute opening. I think everyone put good stuff on paper. Let's see if you guys can expand a little bit now. Pez, 2 minutes whenever you begin.
Like I said, one of the problems was they were bringing in good guys who they turned heel instead of just bringing in a bad guy who was a bad guy. And most people remember the most iconic basically villain of the Monday Night Wars WCW era was Hollywood Hogan and leading the NWO, and that is something that was very recognizable across both promotions. It was something that completely revolutionized wrestling and changed it. And one of the problems that that Vince later had was bringing in the NWO after the invasion was already over and bringing it to destroy his own promotion, which is really silly. When you had a bright, easy thing you could have had, where you could have had Hogan coming in, being the first real face that we see from the other promotion, maybe not knowing where his alliances lead, and then starting the literal invasion, much like he did when him and Nash and Hall took over kind of WCW and started the invasion there. They could have started an invasion here and really amped it up and made it interesting from the very start, and then you could gradually work in some of the other people to either oppose him and join the WWF ranks or join him and try to destroy the WWF. So it would have been, a nice little storyline to really kick things off. I mean, Hogan instantly has that name recognition. He has that charisma. Is he the greatest in the ring? No, but he doesn't have to be. He still has the star power, as we saw, and the ability to work those big matches when you need to, as we saw eventually with The Rock. And you could have his other guys in his faction kind of work those big matches when needed. You really needed a person that could lead a literal invasion and who has experience in doing so. Look, Sting is a guy who wouldn't have the creative control. He would have been squashed immediately by guys like Triple H, Vince McMahon, a lot of people wouldn't even probably recognize him because he never ever appeared in WWF to begin with, or you'd have to be kind of a hardcore WCW fan to do that. Goldberg is more of an attraction rather than a guy to sort of lead an invasion. He's a guy you bring in about halfway to really change the tide, or be that special attraction that you bring in at some point.
All right, Richie, whenever ready, 2 minutes.
I think, I think, obviously, like I said, the in Alliance, obviously they were all heels, but I think with Goldberg, you could present him as obviously like a heel, but like a guy who's sort of aligning with like sort of the devil the devils that they know, as opposed to rather than aligning with the devil that they don't know, kind of thing. And then eventually, and then I think that they'd be more convinced to. I think Vince would be more convinced to sort of book the Alliance as more dominant, as a more formidable force to take over, to take on the WWE. And then maybe towards the end he kind of gets fed up, and then sort of sides with and eventually turns babyface. And I just think and then there's a lot of, and again you get the dream match between Austin and Goldberg, and there's all these other combinations there too. Like you get maybe Goldberg and Taker, but in there more of their prime than you would of later on in the line. And I just think with Hulk Hogan, he'd obviously have more booking power, and he'd be an actual heel, but like it might be booking power to the detriment of the Angle, because I think I feel like he'd probably book himself to sort of go over when he probably doesn't need to, or there'll be like this. I feel like politics might come into play where it's just like I just feel like it might be silly booking to get him over to the detriment of the Angle. I kind of feel like Sting, like the way Austin feels like about Goldberg, where I just feel like he's a special attraction. I don't know. I don't know how he'd be booked here. I don't know if he'd be the guy to lead this faction, just because I think he's more of a special attraction you use once in a while. I'll cool. And go Goldberg.
All right, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Well, first of all, just to refute that, this isn't about who's leading the faction. This is just about who could change it, and Sting would absolutely change it, because people absolutely know Sting. That was my 4th grade Halloween costume. People know Sting. Just to say that people don't, like that just is very silly to me. Part of wrestling is looking back on things fondly, and people aren't looking back on Hulk Hogan's career fondly. People aren't looking back at Goldberg's career fondly. They're looking back on Sting's career fondly and the classics he's had. And I can only imagine the classics he would have had in WWE around this time, with people in the company. You know, people like an Undertaker, people like Chris Jericho. You know, so inserting Sting into this angle only helps it and doesn't hurt it. And we're probably looking back on this more fondly than we are now because, yeah, the invasion angle, while yes, the result probably would have been the same. WWE's coming out on top, obviously. We're going to look back on it and say, hey, remember when Sting and The Undertaker? Remember Sting and Kane? Remember Sting and, you know, maybe Mick Foley comes back, you know, Cactus Jack, Mankind. We see maybe that interaction. You know, the only thing we're talking about from this era with Hulk Hogan is the Rock match, and that was after the invasion angle was done already. You know, Goldberg, sure, he made an impact when he came back, but I don't know if that impact is the same in the invasion. When you think of Sting, you think of, you know, good in-ring work. You think of, you know, he's up in the rafters and he's just looking down, and you don't know why he's there. You know, he's got that mysterious quality to him. And so I think Sting could absolutely change the invasion completely. And, you know, darn you for coming 14 years too late, Sting. But Dolph Ziggler needed a push. You're muted.
Also retract that. Retract the Dolph Ziggler comment and retract that I was muted from your
strike it from the record.
Your vote.
Yeah.
Let it be stricken.
All right, guys. So that was your 2-minute expansion. So we're going now into the 5-minute free for all. As I said before, get your shit in, but also don't be a dick to others. Time starts whenever someone starts.
Mm-hmm.
I resent there was a sentiment about you know, Hogan having too much creative control, but the thing was when he was actually in the WWF, he had somewhat creative control, but Vince kind of kept him in check. You know, as we saw later when he did come in, he did do the right thing. He put The Rock over at WrestleMania. He put guys like Brock Lesnar over, you know, even just on a SmackDown and did the job to him. Like he would absolutely do the right thing when needed. And one of those things about Hogan that makes him interesting is he would always have that thing in the back of the fan's mind is that he could turn and switch and go, you know, full Hulkamania and turn on, you know, WCW at any given point, and it would kind of be a thing in the air that would always be kind of looming over everything.
Yeah, but we kind of already had that with, you know, people defecting from WWE over to WCW, and I don't know if we need that from both sides. I don't know if that just makes it too much. You know, like,
but that's the glory days of the Monday Night Wars. That's what we all loved, and you extend that into it. Once WCW's dead, you keep interest in that by bringing those guys in slowly, and starting out with a guy like Hogan is the way to go because he's the most recognizable guy in the company even at that time.
Go ahead, Richie. You haven't said anything yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like bringing Hogan in would be, you know, I just feel like it's like it could be like a mixed bag. Just because I understand. Yeah, it would change it, but like, yeah, it's you don't. I think there's just too many question marks involved where you don't know where, like, you know, it could it be for the you know, for the better, or, you know, like the fact he does need to get checked, or like the fact that he does need to you know, like, you know he at the end, you know, like he can use a star power. Go, oh yeah, just one day. Go, oh, I'm not going to go with this person. Like I don't know. I just feel, and I don't know. Like, not doing wrong. Goldberg is a bit like that himself, but like I just feel like, you know, when you know, I think when you don't have like one of your biggest homegrown stars, which I think, you know, undoubtedly is Goldberg in part of your line. So that's that's just a detriment to your whole angle, and I think that would absolutely change it, and would
But
change
the problem with
land.
Goldberg, Richie, is that, you know, what's he most known for is like the streak. Is he going to come in and start the streak again? Is he going to be undefeated all the time? Who's he going to go under to? You're talking about who's going to do the job. Who would Goldberg ever do the job to in WCW? And if you get, let's say you set up immediately these matches with these big guys, either he's going to run through your entire mid card and kill everybody who, you know, may have any kind of hype anywhere on either roster, or he's going to immediately, like, you're going to put him in a match with Rock or Stone Cold or whatever. Well, who goes over? And then Goldberg's going to get booed because the hometown WWF fans are going to, as we saw in most of the invasion, they're going to cheer the WWF guys and boo the WCW guys. And what didn't work in WCW? Goldberg is a heel. absolutely did not work, and didn't work either. People booing him at infamously at WrestleMania. We all saw that worked out. Bearded Goldberg getting booed.
Let's move back. Let's move back to Hulk Hogan, because my question is, why would anyone? Sure, it's a WCW versus WWF thing, but why would anyone side with Hulk Hogan, who's just kind of was tearing apart WCW and wanted to start his own brand, the NWO? Why would anyone work with him in this angle? Like, why would they side with him? I don't know that they would
side
want
with him because he has the power to actually do what he sets out to do, which is what he did initially when he set up the NWO, and they completely upended WCW and turned it on its head, because you can see that it can be done. It can be done again. We're all talking about in the storyline form or whatever,
right?
Not literally.
So DDP, who was adamantly against the NWO, is all of a sudden going to side with him.
I never said anything about DDP. You said I wouldn't have had DDP in this thing in the invasion in the first place. I would have brought him in as a different guy later. He's to me, he's a top guy, but I would bring him in later like a Goldberg as a sort of wild card, more than a guy who initiates these angles and kind of initiates the storylines.
The argument you had for Goldberg as a heel is probably the same argument I have for what I would have for Sting. I think Sting doesn't work. Like, if you're gonna,
why do they have to be heel? Rob Van Dam was cheered.
He technically was still a heel. He was just a heel.
He was sure he was trying.
He was a cool heel who people cheered because he was really fun to watch.
Sting doesn't have to be a heel. Sting can still be Sting. He can be that mysterious guy. Like he's here. Like, is he gonna join WCW? Yeah. And obviously he wants WCW to survive, because he's been WCW for 10 years at this point, something like that. He's been a company guy. He wants to see them survive.
But what are you gonna bring? Have him loom in the shadows for 3 months and not do anything for the invasion?
All right, time.
Like those last 3 words, they don't count.
All right. All righty, guys. That was your big old free-for-all. Now we're back to just one at a time. Starting with Pez, you got 1 hot minute to settle why you should be walking away with the W.
All right. So Goldberg doesn't work if you bring him in, because he's going to get booed by default by the WWF crowd. WWF crowd is not going to be as familiar with Sting. I'm not saying he's not recognizable, but if you bring him in, what's he going to do? Sit in the shadows and do nothing, for 3 months and just stare, and you're going to wonder what side he's going to turn on. That's compelling for a little while, but we did that for almost a year. In WCW, you want somebody who's going to bring in action. Again, somebody who could kick that off, who could have that power. And like I said, could also have that thing in the back of your head of he could always switch alliances and become, red and yellow Hulkamania again, and kind of turn on his own, thing he created. So he always has that in the back of his pocket. So I think it works storyline wise. And again, he is the biggest star. There's no doubt. A person who wasn't part of the invasion, when you go back and look at the invasion, you're like, how did you not have Hogan as part of the invasion? He was still a star, to the end of WCW. He was the biggest star. There's no doubt in either promotion, and you have to have him as part of this thing in order to make a difference for the better. So he's a bigger star than Goldberg. He's a bigger star than Hogan. That's just an undoubtable fact of wrestling history.
Richie, whenever you're ready.
One of the more infamous promos Vince cut in the invasion thing, and they didn't do anything with it, was it was like basically Vince getting a survey, and he of like who the crowd liked, and he went Goldberg up, and everyone cheered, and he went Goldberg down, and that was the one where less people booed. I think Goldberg would have done really well in the invasion, and I don't think if he's on the WCW side, they would probably cheer WWE over it. But I think you can sort of do him as a bit of a tweener character. You don't have to have it like an RVD. You don't have to have him as a full-on heel. And I just think Sting, I don't know where you put Sting. I think he's more of like a kind of mystery character. Like, I don't know if he would fully change it. I just don't know where he would fit in the overall arc of the invasion. And I think Hulk Hogan's just too much of a question mark as to whether he'd march the beat of his own drum or be a team player. But yeah, and I think Goldberg would change the game, and the Austin Goldberg thing is awesome. So
Jacob, whenever you're ready.
So the reason Goldberg doesn't work is because, first of all, he's just not very good in the ring. After the streak was done, he kind of lost the appeal. And so, and he's just not a good pro. He's just going to kind of be the guy that stands in the back. Hogan, like I said, sure, he might be a big star, but the bigger star for WCW, I think, is Sting because he's more of a WCW guy, and you believe him coming over and wanting to, keep the company and keep WCW afloat and keep them going. You don't know that with Hulk Hogan. And we've already had enough defections already in the storyline that I don't think you want to add one from the other side. We don't need, these guys are jumping over here. Now this guy's jumping over here. This seems too convoluted. The other reason Sting works is because you can think of all the dream matches that hadn't happened to that point. That could happen. No one's saying that about Goldberg. No one's saying that about Hulk Hogan because they're just not good in-ring workers as well. JPO thinks counting is hard. I hope that doesn't count against me. I think Sting absolutely changed the game.
All right, time. You had to make the JBO comment. You had to focus on me instead of your kind of argument. No. But,
I wanted to see you get back on track.
I thought I did 7 twice, and I was like, do I skip 6? I got to skip 6. Anyway. All right. So, good first round here, guys. I think everyone kind of sold it pretty well.
I'm going to take us backstage just so you can't see our facial reactions.
No, I don't. Keep. All right,
I got notes.
You got the power. Like I said, I'm going to defer to you guys first. Since you're just near me, Chris, what do you think, man? Who just overall thoughts, and then finally, who is your number one?
Well, in my notes here, when Pez started off, he said that he was talking more about all the WCW guys being heels, but then he just came with Hogan out of nowhere and didn't really explain his first opening argument, which was, why did they make them all heels? And that confused the hell out of me. Goldberg, yeah, Richie did have some points, but the other guys did have some points about Goldberg just, not being that good and disappeared. Also, Hogan wasn't there until WCW's final day because after Bash of the Beach 2000, he just pieced. And that was the end of it. He said, that's not good for me, brother. Laid down for Jared and got his ass out of there. Plus, everything after the NWO, Hogan was not good at. Like, Hogan, without the NWO, he's nothing. So there was no Hall, there was no Nash, because you're only adding one guy. And Hogan, with the people that were included in the invasion, is nothing. Goldberg could not have a good match with a young guy, did not care about putting people over. That's why.
Are you using debates that they used, or are you making your own debates now?
I know, that's what they said, wasn't it?
Okay, I'm just making sure you're saying stuff they said. Okay.
Well, he just said, like, Hogan always had the NWO and stuff. So I was like, well, he didn't. But yeah, so you bring in Sting, who was there until the end, unlike what he said with Hogan. And Sting was the guy in WCW. He was a homegrown guy that could actually, put over the young talent, or he was there for the good matches, like Jacob said. And that's why I'm thinking I'm going with Jacob.
All right, we got a point for Jacob. Tato, what you thinking?
I went with Pez on this. Barber and Pez both started off really hot. Richie kind of was a little lost in the sauce on this one. But then in that 5-minute round, Pez started clicking and answering their questions and stuff like that. And the charisma, the star power, the experience. That's what put it over for me, Pez.
All right, so we're down to Jacob and Pez here. That's where I do have to chime in now. I thought everyone did really good. I do think, unfortunately, Richie is kind of my third as well because I just feel like the other two kind of sold me more as to where their characters might go, what Hogan would do, what Sting would do, and I don't know if I really heard as much about like what really Goldberg would do and enough battle back as to why he is a good choice. They both tried to take down Sting. I thought Jacob did a pretty good job about defending Sting. I think Pez did a good job about showing us where Hogan would go. But I actually do have Jacob coming out on top of this as well. I just kind of like where he kind of went with it a little. It's a little bit differently. He saw me on the dream matches. He saw me being a little bit differently than just the typical, back and forth heels, maybe turning. And he kind of got it by hair for me as far as I kind of like with the direction that he took it as something a little bit differently than what we got, which is kind of like what the question was. What would change it? And I felt like Sting would have changed it more, actually. So he's going to buy it as well. So bring everyone back in.
Okay. To yell at us.
They all left. Okay. Oh. Hi, it's just Jordan. Oh, okay. There's everyone. All right, guys.
I didn't have this part ready.
No problem. He said kinks. All righty, guys. Well, go to a few years. Oh, did we want to talk about the round?
Well, I just wanted to say thought.
Well,
that-
Chris, I hope you know your wrestling knowledge. No, I was talking about what the Invasion did wrong to start and what they could have done right by making Booker T and DDP, very popular faces, heels when they brought them in. That was my point, but I guess you were too busy forming your own debate in your own head. But that's fine. Listen to the arguments next time. Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks.
All right, so question number 2. We're going only a few years before where we just were in the Invasion era, because now we're talking about the Attitude Era, and that is, who was the most over wrestler of the Attitude Era that never held a world championship? So we're talking the main title here. Richie, Jacob Austin. Cool, you got it in order here. So as before, Richie, nice little tight minute. Explain to us who you got.
Think about like over guys. Because I've been rewatching the Attitude Era recently, and I forgot how truly over D'Lo Brown was for a minute. He was very over, and like had all the makings of a top guy. He's a really good wrestler. He had charisma, and he had connection with the fans. Like obviously, WWE at some point thought so that they made him a Euro Continental champion. And I thought he could make a top run. And unfortunately, maybe due to tragedy or due to what other things, he just didn't make that run. I just think he could have been a top guy. So I think he is definitely one of the more underrated guys in the Attitude Era, never to win a world championship. And I'll expand on why in the coming round, but I definitely think D'Lo Brown deserves his flowers because I think he's a great talent. So yeah.
All righty, he's down with the Brown. Jacob, who you down with?
Yeah, this one again. I was young during the Invasion. I was even younger during the Attitude Era. But one name that I always remember, and one man I can look back at fondly is Rikishi. I think Rikishi just I think he had it all. Like, he had the size, he had the moves. Like, he could go in the ring. He was over with the fans, not only as a singles competitor, but also when Too Cool became a thing. I remember pretty fondly in the Royal Rumble. I think it was 2000 where he eliminated, I think, 8 or 9 to start off with, and then he had the dancing with Too Cool before he eliminated them. Like, I remember the crowd being really into that, and I remember looking back on some of his matches, and the crowd is really into him. He even competed for the title a few times, and unfortunately just never got there. But yeah, he was over with the fans. He could work as both a heel and a face, and I think he was just one of the guys.
All right, perfect timing there. Pez, what you thinking?
So I went with the guy who eventually did win a world title, but the question was who was the most over of the actual Attitude Era that didn't held it at the time. So I went with Chris Benoit. And again, put all the later stuff out of your mind. I'm just talking about circa era 2000, 2001, sort of Chris Benoit after the Radicals came in, him and Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn. And he was clearly not only the most talented of those guys at that time. Guerrero has had his ups and downs, so we weren't sure about him. He kind of been in and out with his personal demons and things. But Benoit had been the most consistent, and he was clearly kind of the guy who they pushed the most out of those four, and was a real credible wrestler and a threat to anybody they put him in the feuds with at the time. And they even teased him winning the world title in one of his matches he had with The Rock on a pay-per-view, where he won it, and then Commissioner Mick kind of overturned it halfway through the match, but the crowd bought it in that matchup, and the crowd could have absolutely bought him being a very, very good heel world champion at that time, and it would have been perfectly legitimate.
All righty, perfect timing as well. All right, guys, got that first initial out there. Now we expand a little bit. Now you got 2 minutes to Richie, whenever you can.
Yeah, Rikishi, he was definitely over, but I feel like the Too Cool act definitely helped his being over to that point, and I kind of feel like when he did get to that world title run, it sort of you could argue the handling of him wasn't great, especially with him being the guy that I know also turning heel. But it sort of cements him I think it was a certain level like he's over, but like not to the top guy level. But yeah, and I just think but I think there's Benoit had opportunity had like I said, like he's had opportunities. He had opportunities at fully loaded. He had opportunity. There was a 4-way, I think, at Unforgiven. But like D'Lo Brown just never. I think the fans would have bought it at one point. At one point, like the late '90s, he was so over. Like you could have made history with the dude and got him to that level of being a world champion. Like he was he was really over with the with the fans, just that entrance, the whole the thing he does, that the low down frog splash is amazing. I think you could have done something with that, and maybe had propelled something of a feud with the Rock. I think, and he was really over, and I just think like they do a lot of things, they kind of drop the ball with it. I just feel like he was a victim of his own of tragedy. I think that the thing with draws really hurt his momentum, unfortunately, and it's not it's just an unfortunate circumstance. But yeah, I do think D'Lo is underrated and definitely the most over.
All right, time. Jacob Barber, whenever you're ready.
They dropped the ball with D'Lo because he was never more than a mid card guy. Like sure he got it. He got over with the fans, but never more so than a mid card guy. Which I'll give him his due. He's a really good mid card guy. Rikishi, on the other hand, is one that they could put in that main event spot. They could put in those big moments, like I said, the Royal Rumble where he had all those eliminations in a row. Like he was seen as somebody who could be a force, somebody who could hang with The Rock, Triple H, Kurt Angle, Austin, all those guys that they put him with those 5. I'm sure I'm forgetting one of them. I can't remember who it is. I'm sure somebody will correct me and they'll dink a point from me, but that's okay. But they inserted him in that Hell in a Cell match because he was so over, and he could get over as both a heel and a face, which I don't know if D'Lo at this time was going to do that. Or Chris Benoit on the other hand, he was able to come over from WCW and make an impact. But if I'm being honest, like outside of maybe that angle match, like there's just not much I remember from this era of Chris Benoit, and that could just be because I was 8 or 9, 10 years old at the time. That could play a factor. I'm sure it is. But somebody that I go back to it is Rikishi, because I think he's just somebody that the fans loved seeing on their screen. They loved seeing him live. He wasn't afraid to take some bumps, like when he fell off the cell. Sure, he fell onto a big pile of sawdust, and I'm sure it was cushiony and it didn't hurt that much. But the fact that he was able to do that, for the fans, I think speaks to his love of the business. The fans loved him. Like I said, both heel, both face. He could do it all, and the fans loved him for it. I concede my time.
No more time.
2 seconds.
Pez, what you got?
So Benoit, like I said, one of the guys that came in that people immediately bought as sort of a credible threat to all these top guys because he had the work rate. He came off as one of those guys who would beat your ass, even though he was slightly smaller. I think he never really got his chance at the time because Vince had a bias against somewhat smaller wrestlers, and everybody in there kind of towered over him. But he could clearly, when you put him in there, as we saw with Stone Cold Steve Austin, when you put him in there with The Rock, when you put him in there with Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, whoever it was, he beat the shit out of everybody he went in, and you believed it. And you believed that at any given night, he could absolutely beat any single one of them and be a champion. As like I said, when they did put him in there with The Rock and he won the title for a brief second, people absolutely bought it and bought into it, that it was legitimate, and it was just kind of taken from him as part of a storyline, and he never really got a chance to get it back. But we saw, pre-invasion, he had completely incredible feuds with both the Power Trip guys, with Triple H, with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had amazing main events on Raw and SmackDown with those guys, suplexing them all over the place, basically being kind of the Brock Lesnar, before Brock Lesnar taking people to Suplex City, having that charisma, having that work rate, and you could absolutely see him having great matches with every single person they put him in there with, and he was completely over and legitimate with the fans, being essentially a kind of unknown guy because he was a mid-card guy in WCW and got himself over very, very quickly. Problem with Rikishi is we saw him as a main event guy, and it failed miserably when he was the heel with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, nobody bought it for a second. He didn't have that same kind of power. He's a fun as a comedic guy. He's a big guy, and that's fine. But he's perfect as that upper mid-card guy that you can use in those positions where he can be, sure, in the main events of maybe a Raw or a SmackDown, against those top guys. But there's a reason we never saw him in the main events, even when he was at his highest. We never saw him in the main event, even with The Rock and Stone Cold. They were like mid-card. They weren't even the main events of the pay-per-views. So like they knew that they didn't really have that much. Same with D'Lo Brown. Name me one amazing D'Lo Brown pay-per-view match. I dare you. I'm sure Chris Cass can do it, but you guys name me one off the top of your head.
Alrighty, time there. That was your 2 minutes. As now we go on to that 5-minute free for all. Time begins whenever someone starts.
I mean, you might not have like full on classic matches, but you don't. I feel like he didn't have the opportunity to sort of work with the top guys. I feel like if he was working with the top guys, he could have those sort of those sort of moments. Whereas, I'll sort of reiterate with the Rikishi thing. Yeah, it's like he did have that kind of, I don't know, that upper main event push with the heel gimmick where he came out to Bad Man, which is like it's such a, I don't know. I went bad. Sorry, yeah, I don't know. It sort of neutered Rikishi in a way. I think he's the comedic guy to me, honest, and I don't think he was nowhere near as over. And even in
I can't take a guy seriously as a champion that wears a sumo thong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to me, you put him as champion. That's like going back to the days of like 1993 WWF. Where you have these like goofy gimmick people. As like your top guys, and when you've already in the attitude era, you need people with attitude. And Chris Benoit is a guy that has that attitude and fit that mold, that that more Smash Mouth style that they were going for, rather than somebody.
You say attitude, yet one of the most over people of the era is Kurt Angle, who started off as a goofy gimmick. Edge, who started off during this time had a goofy gimmick. So don't tell me.
He didn't start out as a goofy gimmick.
I corrected myself.
And his promos, they made him look like a nerd. But then when he got in the ring, he could go and he could wrestle and he could beat the shit out of you. Like, that's a whole different thing.
So
where in his promo, his character, he's a nerd.
Yeah, it's like but yeah, like, and I just think like like Rikishi was in the ring of Stone Cold, but if you watch that match with No Mercy, Austin beat the shit out of him. So
because he's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
He was a part of that Hell in a Cell by default because he just happened to be part of those storylines, and nobody took him seriously as he was going to walk out of that Hell in a Cell with the title. Like, literally nobody took that seriously. Him as a credible threat. But getting into D'Lo Brown, Richie, like, again, I'm sorry, he's fine as your Eurocontinental champion or whatever, one of those two, but he's quickly, most people remember him as like in a tag team with the Godfather. I mean, like, that's silly.
I don't know about that. I feel like his tag team with the Godfather didn't like last long. I feel like they more remember him as
Oh, I'm sorry. Wearing turbans as part of Lowdown. I'm sorry.
Can we get back to the actual question? Because I think we're focusing too much on the world championship. We need to focus on the most over. And Rikishi is getting that crowd reaction. Every night. Whether as a single or as part of two.
Because he dances. Because it's fun to watch a fat guy dance. Fat guy funny fall down.
It doesn't say. Like, it doesn't matter how he got over. All that matters is that he's over.
Whether it's
because he's dancing and he can get the kids on his side. He can wrestle, and that's going to get the adults invested in him. He was able to play both sides of that. He was able to be funny and goofy. He was able to be serious. He was able to connect with the fans on multiple levels. And the crowd reacted every single time he came out.
They reacted because they knew they were going to see a fat guy dance. Like, that's what they reacted to. They weren't reacting to, oh my God, he's putting on these amazing matches. He's, giving us classic moments other than him doing the same dance after everything. Like, it was it's a fun attraction. It's an attraction. Like one of the history.
It got him over. That's the question. Is the worm over?
We need to focus more on Chris Benoit because otherwise it would get counter. Okay, Chris Benoit. Yes, I agree. Great wrestler.
The epitome of charisma, Chris Benoit.
Absolutely.
I feel like when he won the title is when he should have won the title. I think that's a better story. I don't think he was. I don't think he was as he was over as a great wrestler, but as an overall guy people want to say like personality wise, and like a guy that could be like a world champion. I don't know if he was that that to that level yet, yet in that sort of period where I think the fans would go with it, but it's like I think they'd rather they'd rather people like the Rock, Austin, Triple H, or the established guys. Where it's
the thing is, it's a new style of wrestling that the fans hadn't seen, which is why he got over, because he was the guy who just went in there and whipped your ass and didn't have to cut a fancy promo, who didn't have to shake his ass, or shake his head, literally with D'Lo Brown, stand on the thing and shake his head. He came in there, he beat the shit out of you, and the fans got over because they go, "Oh my god,
it new
this
when
guy
it's
is
done
incredible."
his whole career?
Yeah.
I'm saying it was new. It was new for this promotion because he was new to the promotion, Jacob. And when he did it in WCW,
People still knew you're
push.
acting like people who watch WWF didn't also watch WCW, and I don't think that's true at all. Like people knew who Chris Benoit was.
Yeah, and
1 second.
Time. All right, that was your debate. Now time to wrap it up.
That awkward 1 second at the end.
Time. All right, give us that last minute. Sell it hard. If you got the goods, it's a Jeremy Piven joke. Richie, what you got?
All right, ironically, I might be selling the fact that D'Lo Brown's more underrated than anything, but I will say with Chris Benoit, I think he won the title at the perfect time. I don't think he was. I think he was as over as a credible wrestler, but I agree that I don't think he was just like this somehow unknown guy that is just coming in. I think people, I think if anything, I think him and Eddie Guerrero are probably one of the more over, one of more known people already. And so I think he wasn't like this perfectly unknown dude, and coming in. And so, but I think he got more over as fans got accustomed to him. Rikishi, he got over because he was dancing. He was. He is. Yeah, he did he get over? Yes, but but he didn't get over as a heel. That failed. I think as a heel or babyface, D'Lo was getting those reactions. I think, and they think they could have done way more with him. And that's why I think he was the most over guy. He was to win all the title.
All right, Barbarino, your turn.
Yeah, you guys keep bringing up the fact that he got over because of his dancing and his comedy. It doesn't say who was the most over wrestler because of their wrestling. It just says who was the most over. And Rikishi, every single time he came out, got that reaction. I'm not going to sit here and deny that Benoit isn't a great wrestler because he's one of the best of all time at wrestling. Absolutely. In ring, you could make an argument that he's top 5, and I'm not going to dispute that at all. You'd be crazy too. But, as far as being entertained, as far as getting that crowd reaction, I think Rikishi is the better of these 3 choices at that. And it doesn't matter if it was as a single star or as part of Too Cool. Like he was surrounded, with 2 guys that helped him get over, but he was still getting that reaction every single time he came out. He was part of main event programs because the fans bought into him. And so I think Rikishi was the most over of the Attitude Era that never held a world championship, which is a shame. This part doesn't matter. This is personal now because I was a big Rikishi fan and I'm still not over it.
No.
Strike that from the record.
No one can know he was a big Rikishi fan because it doesn't count. Pez, you got 1 minute and try to keep to a minute, you sons of bitches.
Stone Cold, The Rock, Kurt Angle, Undertaker, Triple H, Rikishi? Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, Kurt Angle, D'Lo Brown. No, you mix Chris Benoit into that mix, and it makes sense, and nobody would think twice differently because to make a world champion, you have to be a guy who could have great matches with just about everybody, who could who was legitimately viable as a world champion, who could carry a promotion and get in there. He's a guy who was over in a different kind of way, Jacob. He wasn't over because he had crazy personas. They hit his goofy music and people jump out of their chairs. He was, because he went out there. He was one of the first guys to go out there and command your attention for his wrestling ability. He got over because of his wrestling ability, not because of some silly character or silly promo skill, which is revolutionary at the time. Because sure, Stone Cold and The Rock were great wrestlers, but they also had these kind of over the top personalities. He was one of the guys to really transcend that and become over with the fans as a credible threat. He's one of those guys who would fit right in as a world champion around that time. He epitomizes what Attitude Era was all about. Attitude, kick your ass, break your face, cripple you, do whatever he has to do to be a world champion.
All righty, that is time for this particular round. Get the fuck out of here, all three of you. And let's bring in Chris Cass. Let's bring in Tato. Tato, there you are. Tato, you start this one off. I thought it was close, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. That one was super tight. Pez came hard with the gimmick. He's a comic. He's great on mid. And then Jacob came back with Rikishi saying it doesn't matter how he got over. It's just that he got over. But then Pez sealed it in the end there for me with his last minute. He makes more sense in that lineup of champions with his wrestling ability. So Pez got it for me there.
Got a point for Pez. Chris, what you thinking?
I don't know if I'm good at this thing because of I have opinions wrestling, but I tried here the second time around. Okay, give me some.
Not your opinion.
First
They're debates.
Yes. So Richie's only debate that D'Lo Brown was over was that he shook his head. That was the only example that Richie gave about D'Lo Brown being over. So he's not getting the win. So it came down to Rikishi and Benoit. And there was the one example that Barber said that really struck out to me was he kept talking about how over he was as a face. He could main event. But then something that Pez brought up about the Hell in a Cell was the only main event that Rikishi had was as a heel, which means if you can't be over as both, which is why Benoit, Pez had his great things about that. He could work with the big guys, is what he said. He could have good feuds. He had great matches, and people loved him for it, and that's why I'm giving it to Pez.
All righty. We didn't even know my opinion. I thought that was hard because I feel like they both tackled it from different angles. Pez was very much like he belongs in lineage. Jacob, I thought, did a really good job of saying, well, Rikishi was just over, though. We're not talking about necessarily that. We're talking about over. So I thought they did a tremendous job, too. Richie held his own as well. But, yeah, so Pez will get the point there.
Richie has to.
Yeah, whatever Chris just said.
Go for it. I'm sorry. Go for it.
What's that?
I said Richie has to win the last one now.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Getting the fuck out of here. Yeah. All right, guys. So right now we're tied between Jacob.
It's just looking like the very first battleground that I ever had. It was against Jacob, and we were just going back and forth. It was just me and him. Hey, Richie, nice to be here.
Good stuff, though. It's never been by a mile though or anything. So it's been good so far.
I expected to be last on that one just because this is not my era. So I was like, very, very unconfident in myself.
Yeah, well, I might as well concede the next one because I'm not an NXT guy, so I don't give a shit.
Don't give up now.
Stop the argument. So
I'm not giving it up, but I'm just saying.
Let's change this order to Richie, Jacob Austin.
No,
that's what we just did. So it should be.
Oh, I lied.
I've got the answers here.
It should be Richie or.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good here, I think.
Okay, or this. Yeah,
it's fine now. I lied.
Okay.
All right, guys. Very long question I have here for you. What's the best NXT takeover? Simple as that. Let's see what everyone's thinking. Jacob, whenever you're ready, best of luck to everybody.
So when this question was presented, my mind immediately went to one event, and that was New Orleans. Sorry. That's going to eat into my time. That was New Orleans because, for one, this had the unsanctioned match between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, which was built up so well, and the payoff was tremendous. This featured the ladder match for the first ever North American champion This is also, I believe, the only event in NXT to receive 5 stars, 2 5-star matches from our good old friend Uncle Dave, whose opinion we hold very highly here. Apparently, no, that's not true. But for Dave to give this event 2 5-star matches is saying something. And everything else that happened here, the triple threat tag team match for the Dusty Rhodes Cup, the women's match between I believe it was Ember and Shayna, everything was good here. I probably just butchered that women's match because Jordan distracted me with his counting down.
How I count, baby. Up next, Pez, NXT Die Hard. What you got?
Yeah, no. So from the little research that I did, here's what I came up with. So I went with NXT Takeover 2014 from Full Sail University in the spirit of a true sort of NXT attraction event. When we think of NXT, we think of it as sort of almost like a indie version of WWE. Sort of as like its own promotion, its own separate entity, and that's what we kind of love about it. And a lot of people who really latched onto it, especially in the mid 2010s, latched onto it. And it felt like its own thing. It felt like it was separate from WWE. They kind of established their own personalities, their own characters, their own vibes for their matches, and their own atmosphere as part of that sort of small Full Sail, those diehard group of fans. And on this one, you had those guys that we all know as NXT guys to this day who we fell in love with there. Guys like Neville, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, who came from there, and Kenta, Hideo Itami. So had great stuff all over the place. Charlotte, Sasha Banks. I'll get more into it in just a second. But Revolution 2014.
I tried distracting to make it even, Jacob.
That's fine.
All right, Richie, what you got?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at like a takeover, I'm looking at like top to bottom, like what is the best kind of paper and what truly delivered. And to me, the one that stands out is NXT Takeover Dallas from 2016, and I just from top to bottom, I think you have American Alpha and the Revival. They had a really good feud, and they just put on bangers. I love both of them. They're two of my favorite teams of all time. Baron Corbin's one of his best matches against Austin Aries, and when Baron Corbin was cool. Nakamura and Sami Zayn is still one of the best matches in NXT history. I think it's one of the best matches I've ever seen, quite frankly. This match is banging. You had Asuka finally dethroning Bayley in a fantastic match, and then you had the great feud between Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. I think this is go down as one of the best takeovers in history. Just top to bottom, just a stellar card full of memorable moments. And yeah, I think it holds up as one of the best of all time. So yeah, NXT Takeover Dallas.
Alrighty, Jacob, we got 2 minutes to expand and do some debunking. So fight forever.
So yeah, no, our Evolution is a decent takeover event, but it's not one that has held up over time. Mainly just because it is one of the earlier ones, and I think it's mainly known for that main event match, but nothing before that really sticks out. It's got basically two squash matches, and I don't think one on a special event like this is enough, but they did two. Kevin Owens and CJ Parker was basically a squash match, even though CJ Parker did get in some offense. It was basically a squash match showcasing Kevin Owens. He's here. And then you had Baron Corbin defeating Ty Dillinger in 41 seconds. I only know that because I had to look it up. It's not something that people are going to remember. Dallas, yeah, sure. You had that Sami Zayn Nakamura match, and yeah, while it was a good match, the result was never in question. Zayn was already on the main roster. Like, you could have given that spot to somebody else, and somebody who maybe will question it, like, oh, is Nakamura going to win, or is somebody else going to win, whoever they replace him with? But we didn't have that. With New Orleans, we had that great ladder match to kick off, and any one of those guys could have easily won, with the exception of maybe Lars Sullivan, and knowing what we know now, maybe Velveteen Dream. But you easily could buy EC3 as a champion. You could easily buy Killian Dane as a champion. Ricochet, who would later hold the title, could have been a good first champion. This was the start of Shayna's reign by taking down Ember Moon in a really good women's match. You had Roderick Strong turning on Pete Dunne and joining the Undisputed Era. There were a lot of moments from New Orleans that really stuck out and really furthered storylines, whereas I don't think you got that in these other takeovers as well as the great action. I think this one does it.
All right, good. You saw the end. All right, Pez, you got 2 minutes.
Okay. So the reason why Revolution 2014 stands out is, again, it was kind of a culmination of a couple of years of buildup of NXT, and again, a promotion that the people who were the indie fans, the smart marks who watched WWE and who watched NXT and who felt like it was kind of their own product because Triple H was running it. It felt like something independent. It felt like something that respected the independent promotions of the time, like Ring of Honor, like New Japan. Without overtly, talking about it, but really respected that kind of stuff. What I'm saying is why mine is the most memorable and the best one, because it emphasized storylines and characters over individual match quibbles. Which takeover had the most 5-star matches? Because all the takeovers had really good matches. That was the thing about NXT around this time, is they were banging around with all some of the best talent in the world and let them do their thing. So I'm not sitting here counting stars on each individual matches. What I'm talking about is those memorable moments and those memorable characters that made it stand out when you look back on it and you go, wow, that was a real turning point in NXT, which is really what mine was in 2014, because you had the debut of somebody like Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, who then reigniting his feud/friendship with Sami Zayn and attacking him and starting a whole new feud after Sami Zayn had in this long journey of NXT finally won the title from Neville after almost like a year-long battle with him in this really triumphant moment, being this kind of underdog guy, and he still is to almost 10 years later this underdog guy who the fans still root for, as this guy who they could really get behind, who always feels like that dude who's so close to winning the thing and only gets it here and there. He actually got the moment that he wanted at this takeover. And then right afterwards, reigniting this feud with Kevin Steen /Owens. Right after, and starting a new chapter in these feuds. And that's what makes it great. You had guys like coming over from Japan, Kenta and Prince Devitt, aka Hideo Itami and Finn Balor. These guys who, again, still associated with NXT. Finn Balor recently going back to NXT. These guys who, again, were the heart of the thing, who would carry the promotion into even these two guys' events, really starting their journey here.
All right, time. Richie McGoniger finish up this round, or this round.
Well, yeah, I feel like again, top to bottom, like this is like the card. Like our Revolution, I agree. I think it was just, and it's good. I think it's just NXT sort of still finding its feet. And then it's got Kevin Steen there. That's a memorable thing. I think while it has Sami Zayn and Neville, which is a great match, I think it's. But you forget how good of a match that is because you just remember that the end bit where Kevin Owens turns heel. You're like, oh yeah, but yeah. So I just think I think while storyline progression is it's an important thing. I do feel like quality matches do progress a story, and I kind of push back on the idea that you could have had someone else in the ring with like Nakamura, and you'd be like, oh well, is Nakamura going to win? Like no, it didn't matter. Like you could have still had there's a plethora of talent there, and you could have had with Nakamura. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's any doubt that Nakamura was going to win. It was his debut match, but it just still doesn't take away from the match or the moment. It's still fantastic, and I think it worked. It was a great send off for Sami Zayn with NXT, and same. I guess you can say the same with Bayley, who sort of that was almost her kind of send off. And like as that was sort of a great moment. So and I think you do have storyline progression because Finn Balor and Samoa Joe would this would be the first in their feud. So there is storyline progression there without it being particularly obvious, like turning heel or whatever. So I generally I think in terms of great matches can make great storyline progression. So.
Alrighty, guys. Good way to wrap that up. And now we're going to start in the 5-minute free for all.
Which one was this again? The Gargano and Ciampa, because they had 85 different gimmick matches. So which one was this again?
Well, see, so that how many matches have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn had? It's the
Only
same.
a
It's the
couple.
same thing. It's the same thing.
They've been feuding for
So-
years and years and years, and that's the thing is like this was NXT versus WWE. My point was that this was an NXT feud that went on way too damn long because it was Ciampa and Gargano having match after match after match after match, and like never really settling the feud. And it's like and a lot of their matches.
Every
blend.
match was great.
A lot of matches
in-ring
blend
work.
because they did so many stupid stipulations of I quit, last man standing, unsanctioned, whatever the hell. Like I forget which one's which, and that's a problem when you're trying to.
It's not though, because every match is great. And you wanted to talk about storyline progression. Every match on New Orleans furthered a storyline. Adam Cole becoming the inaugural NXT North American champion. Shayna Baszler starting her reign as women's champion. The Undisputed Era with the new member in Roderick Strong. Aleister Black starting his championship reign, and then Johnny Gargano.
And you're talking about a lot of people that aren't even in WWE anymore. And again, I'm talking about my event, where a lot of the people in my event
it's not
again,
about
are continuing the legacy.
It's about the event
the legacy
itself.
in WWE who stuck loyal to WWE who continue the legacy.
Why does that matter when we're talking about the specific events
takeover event of what the heart of NXT is?
You look at all these matches, and they're.
I'll put back on is like you sort of put like the Sami Zayn and Nakamura thing you made. It's obvious that Nakamura's going to win, but like I feel like going into the Roderick Strong, the Pete Dunne match. It's like obvious that they weren't a proper team, so it was obviously something maybe So when Roderick Strong turned on, it was like, oh, that's
and the crowd was shocked. Yeah,
shocked. I mean, I don't know how shocked can you be? It is obvious like they were planting the seeds already.
How shocked the crowd was.
They were planting those seeds already. So it's like, and I'm not saying that as a negative thing. Like just because something's obvious doesn't mean it's still cool. I think that was still I think so like yes. Well, Sami Zayn being in that match is obvious. It still makes more sense. And and then the revival and American Alpha further their feud. That's storyline progression because they want to prove who the best team is, and this is a match of like multiple matches. This is the better one. Like the Finn Balor Samoa Joe match is the first one after Samoa Joe turned heel, and then they'd have bangers after this, and then they trade title back and forth. That's storyline progression. Like you had Bayley, who was like this fighting champion. She'd finally succumb to Asuka, and it was a great sort of swan song for her, like NXT run. This is all these matches. While they're all great on paper, they also made sense in a storyline perspective. It's sort of like what you're also, I guess, what are the criteria that you've sort of laid out as well.
It's more about your NXT takeover, Richie, and things like that. Were a symptom of what would become of NXT, which is be a little bit of a weird scenario where they're just trying to upend whatever the pay-per-view was that weekend that it was attached to. And a lot of times it was like that was their entire goal, instead of just doing, we're going to have the longest matches or the longest things, and we're just going to make the crowd pop so we can, better or best, WrestleMania or best, SummerSlam or whatever it was. And again, they've kind of lost that heart of what made NXT special in the first place, of just having these small, great shows and catering to the fans who really follow their stuff, instead of trying to, we're just going to have the best show of the weekend. And that's all well and good. But try to, all we're trying to do is be something we're not, like be like as big as a pay-per-view, when I preferred it when it was these smaller shows that really had great matches and had great stories that you can invest into and felt like it was its own thing.
But the thing with our evolution is it was in that early time, and this just felt like an extended episode of NXT TV, because up until the main event, nothing really memorable happens. This is remembered for the main event.
Kevin Owens debuting for the first time and becoming the biggest star, in NXT, and proving himself. Except for Hideo Itami and Finn Balor debuting and become like this huge thing of
debuting in the ring. They've been on TV
and doing that thing, but having like their first big
top
like
to bottom,
matches.
and you look at it match by match.
And having Charlotte
Orleans
Sasha
is
Banks.
As an overall card, it's not as memorable because you do have in the mix of that, you do have matches that I'm like, oh that's right.
And Dallas suffers from Baron Corbin and Austin Aries. Every match on New Orleans was top notch, top quality, and they delivered.
Wrap it up, y'all. All right. That was your 5-minute debates. We are now in your final closing
This is really
arguments.
fast 5 minutes. Holy shit!
It is. Oh my goodness! I was like,
Oh yeah,
you
I'm
came
gonna
back
do that.
already.
It was fine.
Already? Damn. Okay.
Jacob, you got 1 minute to solidify your argument.
Yeah, like I was saying, when you look at it from top to bottom, every match on New Orleans delivers, and every match is memorable. When you look back at our evolution, unfortunately, you remember the Sami Zayn Neville match. It was a good match. You remember the turn, and yeah, Kevin Owens at the beginning, where his celebration was longer than the match itself. Dallas, unfortunately, everything is overshadowed, I think, by that Nakamura Zayn match. I forgot that Finn Balor was the winner. I wasn't sure. Is this the one where Samoa Joe won? I don't remember without having to look it up. With New Orleans, you remember the epic unsanctioned match between Gargano and Ciampa, where Gargano got his job back. You remember Adam Cole winning the North American title for the first time. You remember Roderick Strong turning on Pete Dunne, joining the Undisputed Era, and Authors of Pain being involved in a really good match. Let's not gloss over that AOP was in a great match.
All righty. Austin, what you got?
So, again, Revolution 2014 is something that you would tell your friends about. It's something that feels special at the time because NXT had this small, intimate feel that people really connected with, and this is the one where it felt like it was a real turning point for NXT and making it kind of what it is today, making it really special, making it something. That wasn't just trying to copy a bigger pay-per-view. It was something that would start a legacy and continue a legacy. Like I said, guys like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn really having these giant moments that 10 years later, I mean, essentially they're tag team champions right now, and they were continuing a feud they had even 10 years prior, to feud and friendship they would have 10 years prior even to this NXT event. It was something that respected the indie wrestlers they brought in, something that respected the fans and the kind of smart fans that wanted this to be their own little heart independent promotion sort of thing. And it's what really had a feel. You look at the feel in the glory days of just these little Full Sail events that had great matches. Again, you guys are quibbling over which one had the most 5-star matches, and to me it was more about the character of the storylines that would continue and make NXT what it is today.
Richie, wrap it up for us.
So yeah, I take sort of umbrage with like the idea that like this card is hindered by a Baron Corbin match. This is the best Baron Corbin match Baron Corbin's ever had, and I still think that top to bottom this was great. Like this is it's not just a Nakamura Zayn match. I maybe focused on that a bit, but the Revival and American Alpha have one of their best matches. I think top to bottom it's a great card. I just think, while I get the point that our Revolution is a small, unique, card, and it shows where they've been. It's not as memorable. Too many squash matches, and I honestly, I don't find the Gargano and Trump. I remember I do have to look up and go, oh, which one was that one? Like it's good. They're all great, but I do they wrestle each other each time. So I'm just like, oh, okay, oh yeah, that's one, yeah. I do remember Roderick Strong turning on Pete Dunne, but I'm like, I expected that. I was like, oh, yeah. But so I just think top to bottom, this is the best one. And started off with some.
Alrighty, wrap done. Alrighty, so Jacob, Paz, Richie, get the fuck out of here. All right, hey, it's me. Oh, okay, I like my full screen. All right, let's go back to Chris. Chris, what you thinking?
No, you're first this time. Don't put me first.
No. I was always third.
You were always third? Oh, okay. Damn, well, you put me on the spot here. So I have like a bunch of notes again. But like we're talking about the best individual pay-per-view or special event, and as a whole that you want to watch again, the best one. And I feel like Jacob did his best at putting it over. Big matches, memorable. Pez has had storylines too. Dallas, not so much. But I think Jacob did a best job of selling his pay-per-view as a top-to-bottom best NXT takeover. So voting Jacob.
Barbara's got to put on the board. Tato, what you thinking?
I really liked what Pez did with the indie feel and the debut of some characters and how it had story, but both Richie and Barber kind of laughed him out on that one and said like we had great matches top to bottom and progress storyline as well. So Richie came up with a bit of business there about how, and both Barber and Richie attacked that 2014. It was still kind of finding its feet and was just not as good as it is now. So I got Barber coming through ultimately on this one with the 5-star matches and the top to bottom, the turns,
No, understandable. Do see what you guys are saying. I think they both, again, this was almost like this semantical, like, Pez made a really good argument for like, yeah, but mine is, moments over matches. But like I said, I think kind of like you said, Tato, maybe the fact that it's a 3-way might have hurt him because Richie and Barber both kind of attacked him, and that's hard to come back from. I thought all three did a good job. It looks like Jacob is in the point, and technically with that, Jacob Barber does get the win tonight here since he has 2 points on the board. Let's bring everyone back in now. Overall, though, I do give credits to everyone. Richie also, like I said, I think each time kind of put up some really good stuff here. I think maybe just Pez and Jacob are really good at hammering their points in and also debunking a little bit as well. But then all three did a great job tonight.
Yeah, thanks. That's all good.
Pez, you for somebody who's not an NXT guy, I'm giving you your deal on
you
that
wouldn't know it. Yeah.
Boy, did I
argument,
bullshit my ass off and come with an angle that I thought.
I was like, oh shoot, I was fucking that.
Round 2 and 3 had me flip flopping which is what you should do, or is a good debate rather. When you're like, oh, Jacob might have it now. Oh no, Pez kind of makes a good fucking point. Yeah. Oh, Jacob's kind of good.
Well, Richie.
I was about to say that's for you. I was about to throw you in there.
Yeah, you were there too, Richie.
No, he said it was never a wipeout, I think, in any round, which is also really good. There's never one round where I was like, okay, this guy has it by a mile. It was just kind of like, all right, I think he might have nailed a little bit more for me, but again, I think I could be convinced otherwise in each round.
If it was like, if they were arguing which one meant the most to NXT's future, Pez would have won. But it was about best.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like Pez is very good at like he found like an angle for question 2 and 3 where it was like, oh, okay. Now it's almost a matter of like how you read the question almost. Yeah.
And I had no notes for any of that shit, so that was me pulling it all out.
That was good. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that angle.
Yeah.
Let me work on that.
Let's see. How did I pick my answer? Let's see. I looked up top 10 NXT Takeover events and I picked one, and I picked one of the smaller ones just to see if I could play around with an angle for that. That's all.
Here's all my notes if you guys want to read them.
To be honest,
stars debut story character.
Keyword. Yes, that was my deciding factor. Was keyword was the best.
You got doctor's hand right.
To be honest, guys, these were the 3 choices that I was deciding between. So having to argue against them.
Really, like our Revolution and Dallas.
Yeah, I think because I think our Evolution it is that debut of Kevin Owens and that moment between Sammy and KO at the end. That really, solidify it, especially in those early days.
I think everyone
was the paragraph that I read about it that made me pick it. So great, like in my limited research that I did on it. Yeah. So it's like whatever.
Now I also will say all 3 rounds. I think everyone picked good answers. Like there was not a one round. I'm like, why that? There was no almost for Rocky.
I almost picked Rikishi. Jacob got to Rikishi. Actually, I probably considered picking Rikishi because I mean, holy shit! You go back and look at those Raws and stuff during that time. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that motherfucker was over. He was so over, like ridiculously over, and he could actually go in the ring like pretty good. The problem was like we had that shit where they did kind of try it with Stone Cold and it failed so miserably that like. You're just like, I don't know. Like,
Richie, by the way,
he might have been a world champion.
Richie, you bastard! Bad Man is a great theme.
You can feel it, but that doesn't come across. It is a great theme, but it doesn't come across well on the speakers because you can sometimes like
that opening bass line is so hard to even hear. It's like, and then all of a sudden I know I'm a bad man.
Also, because of Rikishi's failed. Because of Rikishi's failed heel turn, Scotty Too Hottie is the most over member of Too Cool. Just saying.
Well, but there's a better argument to be made for Rikishi than Scotty Too Hottie. I think.
I can see. I don't know. Halfway through that argument, I'm like, there's probably someone else I could have gone with other than D'Lo Brown.
No, I think D'Lo's a good answer because he
It's
got some
not
pretty
a
good
bad
shots.
answer. I just I don't know. Like
They
it
had the
would've-
good debate of like he plateaued to a degree.
We've never seen
and
like
maybe
what he could do
reasonable.
as a main eventer really
Yeah.
anywhere. Because even in early TNA, he was like wasn't he champion for a little while? But like
no, that would have
no?
been my argument. Is that like even
Yeah.
TNA like kind of pushed him
Didn't
for a
use him?
second.
He had like,
Yeah,
he had
and
like
then
a
he fell
match
down.
with Jarrett, a match with AJ, and then was like gone.
And it was like gone again. Yeah, it's like
I'll tell you one guy I almost went with, and maybe I should have gone with him because considering he has had experience as a champion elsewhere, I almost went with Taz.
yeah, but except he got squashed too quick, and he was like the little guy who couldn't.
I know,
Yeah,
but
like,
he was so.
when would you have put the title on him? In January or
Yeah.
February?
Yeah,
I know, he's
really
I
narrow
like doing
window.
the backstage stuff live. It's a good addition to this.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting if Richie would have picked Eddie Guerrero because then we could have a Radicals little debate or something.
The whole time that I was
there was a
sitting,
point where the Latino Heat stuff was really getting over. Like the him and China shit was like really fucking over, and he could have taken it to the next level, I think, and they could have done something with that.
the whole time I was sitting backstage, and Richie just kept talking about he was over because of his head thing. I was like, Richie, give me something else besides the head thing.
The head thing.
It's got a good frog splash. There you go.
The chest protector was fun. Come on.
That was fun. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, why didn't you bring up the chest protector?
Right, the chest protector was over.
Him and Chaz were
Like when he would cheat with the chest protector, like people would like boo the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good argument. Like, he made a chest protector get over. He made shaking his head get over.
He made a chest protector get over before Bret Hart did it to Goldberg.
Oh, nothing to get over. Brett never got over that.
That wasn't a chest protector. That was just a big piece of metal that he stuck in his hockey jersey that he spewed.
Yeah, we I'm sure we could talk all night, but yeah, Jordan, why don't you go ahead, wrap us up? Tell us how you thought this went because this was your idea, and then Austin, did you write down how it went? Are we doing yours next, or are we doing Richie's?
No, I'm doing
next?
mine, I think.
Oh
Alright, so-
yeah, Richie's is next, and then mine's after that, and Jacob's is
Okay, so yeah,
last,
so next week,
yeah.
just before we wrap it up, next week we will be doing Richie's topic. Richie, why don't you tell us what we're going to be doing?
Doing MLW Battle Riot from earlier this year. Well, it was from earlier this year, but they just uploaded it a couple weeks ago. And yeah, that match is wacky. It's basically almost like is a 40 or 50 man, JBO.
40. So it's like a Royal Rumble from what I saw. Like the clips
it's like
stuff?
a Royal Rumble, but
Yeah.
you can also get pins and submit.
Oh, so it's World War III
yeah,
with
yes,
one ring.
Yes. It's nuts. There's a lot going on. But it's gonna be fun.
It's an hour-long match, right? So it's just one
An hour-long
that
match
you're
with
doing,
a bunch of wacky cameos.
Oh yeah, I think I saw a clip. I didn't even intend to, but I was like flipping around on Facebook, like, and the algorithm started picking up like wrestling stuff, and I saw that like, is Gene Snitsky in this thing for like a cameo?
No spoiler.
Oh,
I
Jesus
guess we'll
Christ.
find out.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I watched the right one. Maybe that's from previous year. I don't know. I don't know what I saw. So
Well,
Okay,
warning
so-
for people that are watching: do not watch the Travis Fame versus Andrew the Dude Hayes trivia match from the other night because there is spoilers about the winner of that match in one of the questions. So don't
oh
watch it.
okay.
Ah.
So we're gonna watch that. Is there anything else we're doing besides that? We'll catch up on some news and stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah, we
besides
can
that.
catch up on some news. I'm sure we'll have some Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
Some more
news to
Forbidden
talk
Door
about.
matches
Sure,
by
but-
then,
I guess-
probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
So,
should probably talk. I mean, we might be able to talk about it next week because we could probably talk about Iron Sheik, I guess, next week as well. Maybe just a little bit. I don't know.
Oh,
we
we
bit
can,
outdated by then.
Yeah.
I think it's
No,
about it
that's
now.
not-
I mean,
that's not
a little bit, but yeah. I mean, I
Talk
see
about
what
him
the-
now, or he'll fuck your ass and make you humble.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah. Like I just remember him as a great, like, yeah, he was just a great '80s heel and probably one of our Holland's greatest ever series. But yes, I mostly because I did obviously grow up with him. I just remember him as the guy in the Gimmick Battle Royal and with Bobby Heenan say by the time he gets to the ring, it'll be WrestleMania 38. And I really wish they paid off that joke at WrestleMania 38. That would have been fun. I wish Bobby Heenan was alive.
He just out of the nowhere just starts walking down the ramp again and just
Yeah, it's like, I mean,
oh, he's here. He's here for the
Yeah, that would have been like not a lot of people in the crowd would get it, but like some of them would.
That'd be fun for what it was, yeah.
Yeah, and so and like him on Twitter was really fun. I think his last tweet, if you go, last week was like, Whoever let the dogs out, fuck you. I think that was his tweet. And that's just unhinged tweets are funny.
It wasn't directed at Hogan?
No, it wasn't. Hulk Hogan, I'll break your back and make you humble. You fuck.
Yeah, fuck.
And
You
then
fucking jabroni.
yeah, and then I think his memories gonna be immortalized in like I don't think they do it anymore because of like monetary stuff, but like he was always at the end of the Botchamania stuff. Like, fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll remember him as being unhinged and quite very, and surprisingly very funny. So yes, and very, very, very a larger than life character.
There's a YouTube channel I watch. It's called Stash Club Wrestling, and they do quizzes. And one, I don't know if it's
Those guys suck.
yeah, they're very bad at trivia.
If you ever scroll down to the
yeah.
comments, every week you can see me commenting on how much they suck.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but the next one they have, it's set to premiere. I don't know if it was today or tomorrow, but it's guess the wrestler by the Iron Sheik tweet. So that's the next one they have. So that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So Jordan, as the host tonight, why don't you wrap us up?
Yes, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe on this channel here on the Movie Hero Network. Let's also go to our guest this week here, Chris Cass. Where can we find you?
On Twitter at CASS, and as well as twitch.tv/Casper. It's the home of Combat Wrestling Trivia. You can find me there. That's the home of it. And yeah, you can soon find me on Lights Out Trivia with my two good friends in the Pepperoni Factory. I'm sorry, JPO. As we defeat the evil secret tunnel people and those other three guys that are there, but we will talk about it.
Yeah, fuck those guys. I think we can all agree on that.
No, fun fact, I'm changing ships. I think Secret Tunnel's got it. Tato, where can we find you?
Secret Tunnel, baby. That's where you find. I'm hanging out in that Secret Tunnel all the time with Jay Burns and Unknown ? We will. I'm also over at the Pierce Co. sometimes playing ASAT. You can find me there. Henry Shit Confidential Movie Live Talk Arena, whatever it is, 2 weeks from now. And also over at TMG doing Battleground shit.
Richie, Lonely Marks, plugs, parting words.
Yeah, it was fun. I did need to prepare more on my debates, but yes, I thought it was fun. Just they all both came with the heat, but it was good. It was a good time. I'm glad to be a guinea pig for this thing. I hope you keep doing it. Just keep Movie Hero. The Team Ranker tournament fight. I think the next one I'm on is a mystery fight. Might come up soon. Other than that, Tubi podcast, tell them they're streaming. Do it part the movie. God help me. And so that's up there now. Combat Wrestling Trivia, Wrestling with Trivia, and all that. Hey, Cass, can you tell Jacob Barber that we're versing each other at Combat Wrestling Trivia? And he refuses to believe that that's happening. I did call him out. You were like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but then I took a break and some things happened. There's other things going on. We'll worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Jericho called Goldberg
anytime
out
soon.
17 times in a row and nothing.
Yeah.
But
Barber, if you win your next match, you get me, baby.
Maybe. It depends on another thing. I told you that, Jake.
Jesus, yeah, all right. Well, whatever. He's booking me. Pez, did you get it all in your mouth that time, Chris? Because you made me laugh earlier when like 3 of them dribbled out. Pez, parting words.
You can find me pulling NXT arguments out of my ass here on Lonely Marks off of 3 bullet points I wrote down for it, and completing and making a complete narrative out of it, because I'm really good at debating. So, there you go. Mostly here on the Movie Hero Network. Jacob and I have a show on Saturday. I'll let him plug that. As far as what we got going on there, I'll be on Ryan Permis's Nerd Culture channel on Sunday night doing a watch along, not a drink along. Luckily, I don't have to drink for it, but a watch along of Man of Steel for the 10th anniversary. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm a big Snyder guy, and then me and Richie and Jordan will be doing sort of a Wheel of Movies thing again next week as we follow Richie in his progress of watching the Indiana Jones movies for the first time. We're watching Temple of Doom next Wednesday. So
nice.
Yeah. So we figured on the fly that we might as well polish off the trilogy with Richie and kind of follow his journey. And yes, I said the trilogy. Fuck Crystal Skull. You don't need to watch that. You're fine. So go read the Wikipedia page on the plot summary, Richie, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. It just too perfect. So we're just going to do the trilogy. We'll do the trilogy.
You can read the Wikipedia for Crystal Skull, and you'll be good. And you can go watch.
I'll be good. Yeah.
3 bullet points, and you'll get the story. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
Go.
And he had a son named Mutt with Karen Allen. That's all you need to know in that movie. That's all you need to know. You're good.
Okay.
Everything else is fine. But anyways, yeah, Jacob, what do you got?
Yeah, because JPO's falling asleep already.
I'm just waiting for you to wrap it up, Jacob.
Let him take his power nap before we do midnight trivia.
Yeah,
No, at least I can talk. I've just spent an hour and a half just listening to you guys.
I know. So sorry we indulged
It's
in your
your
idea. Oh my god, your idea. So sorry we indulged.
Your idea.
My bad.
Anyways,
Sorry.
thank you to Chris and Tato for being here and judging. You can
Thank
find
you,
me
guys.
tomorrow night with Austin. We will be doing since we are in the midst of the summer blockbuster season, we'll be talking about the one that started it all with Jaws, as well as the sequels because I had never seen them. And then I'll be on Battleground Casual talking Spider-Verse, and then Sunday on Rankum talking Spider-Man overall. So that is where you can find me. JPO, what do you got?
Yeah, guys, y'all heard some of the plugs already. The Pierce Owens fun over there. Tag team tournament just began. In fact, we might have even had some advancements from this channel. Austin and Jordan maybe picking up a W.
Surprisingly, we did.
Their match. I was
An
going to say maybe
upset?
because I was trying to get them to watch it. But all right, well, so they did. So follow that.
See how we did it because even I was inexplicable on how we did it. We did it somehow. Go watch it. Even I was surprised throughout the match.
You'll see upcoming matches featuring Tato and featuring Richie as well, but not Chris. So that's over at the Pierce Go. We also have fun at the Pierce Wrestling channel. Next week, we are finishing up the 2023 wrestling tournament. We're in the finals of that, so that's going to be fun.
Hold on. What's the actual name?
The Who Gets to Lose to Chris Cass yearly tournament.
Thank you.
Yes, because the man is insane. So yes, like, subscribe on this channel, tell a friend, tell an enemy, and the mask goes over the mouth. Do we still do that, Jacob?
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but